Hi guys, welcome to another video on May in Bloom. I am May. If you're new here, I love to talk about holistic living and sovereignty, and I explore these subjects from a womanist and decolonial perspective. And I try to either speak about them here or let them inspire the creativity and art I create on my eco print shop, Bloom Baby Bloom Studio. And it's also the subject I explore on my Substack, which is Fieldnotes of Wild Bloom. I also give sessions and life guides specifically on that, so you can always check out my website for that. There's a lot of things I do in this room. For me, it's my universe. It's the place I love to explore and create from. And over the years, the most beautiful part of it is how I as a person have changed because of it, how I've evolved, how I feel more and more like myself. And it's interesting because I often say that when we go through life, like, there's so many things we think it's about learning and perfecting, but actually it's about like taking off the layers that you have inherited or taken on without intention, that have hidden your true essence or kind of dim the ability of your own true essence to shine through and to lead your life. I feel like this is what this subject is going to be about mostly, in the sense of how do we protect the most precious thing we have, and for me that is our life force. But you could also call that our soul. It's beyond what animates you, because that could be thought of as spirit. Everything has spirit, but the soul is kind of your own inner knowing, inner calling. And in that sense, I feel like there's so many things, like especially like when I've talked a lot about decolonization, or like living from the white gaze, living from the patriarchal gaze, whether it's white or black or African, doesn't matter. And it takes a long time, especially as an African woman, a black woman, to exist in a way that feels like you are the head that is in charge of your own life and experience, to return yourself to your full agency, because there's so many systems and so many ways of living that are created to either distract you from that, or sever you from that, or block your cultivation of that for yourself. And I feel like this all comes back to the preciousness of everybody's life force. So today's exploration is going to be much more, I guess, on the spiritual, but in everything I talk about, whether it's decolonization or sovereignty or like holistic living, I really try to bring it back to a grounding perspective, to a practical perspective, to an everyday applicable perspective. And I will do my very best to do that for this as well. But it's a subject that has been lingering in the back of my mind, and I could just feel like, okay, today's the day, and I am speaking straight from my heart, my soul. And I hope it's of benefit for people who need to hear this kind of message, or who are venturing around the same area as I am. And so I hope like this kind of like just helps walk you along, and can make you feel more confident, more grounded, and more assured in your pursuit of living a more sovereign life, and a life that makes sense to you on your own path, in your own pace. And what I've learned about life and on my own path is that everything on a smaller scale can be amplified on a bigger scale. Every little ecosystem, every little cell, in its own way, it has the wisdom or the coding that we see on a bigger scale. They say the more you learn, you know nothing. What I'm finding is the more you learn, the more you see patterns, and how things are so similar in so many ways, and how they echo each other, and how there's almost an intentional effort to complicate life in ways that it doesn't have to be complicated. If we understand that the life force is the most precious thing you have, and it's basically like your signature in life, your soul, and you see the way that life is put up, and you see how far away we are actually encouraged to connect to this part of ourselves, almost the devaluation of it. Now, I speak to you as somebody who used to be Christian, and who I think in my understanding of the soul was almost like something that was precious enough in a religious context for the devil and God to be playing for it, you know? And of course I was supposed to give it to God. And like through like my decolonial journey and leaving religion behind and connecting to more and more things that make more sense to me. When I left religion, I was like clear, as I've shared before, that I was spiritual, but like really maybe turned off by any dogmatic or even too spiritual approach to life. But at the same time, trusting that because I didn't go from one to the other, like, okay, now I believe there's nothing, but knew that there's something, but just it's been polluted and it's been manipulated because it's been used against us and our best interest in so many ways. I knew that eventually by trusting whatever was inside me, because I believe whatever it is, it lives within us. It's like air. Like air is the most important thing we have on this earth. And it wouldn't make sense that something so important like our spiritual connection would only be found in certain books, you know? So me knowing instinctively that whatever it was like almost like air. It's everywhere and it's available to everyone. Nobody needs to bring it to you. Nobody needs to colonize you to bring it to you, or like make you feel like you can't be part of your culture and have it. Like the more I realized that, the more I could really tap into like letting it almost guide me like air, you know, like you don't overthink it. You just trust that I can breathe. The next air is always provided, right? Air is the most important and most valuable thing we have. And whatever else is, it's in the same symbol of air, available and present. And it's kind of like in the same sense of air, in the sense that if you are over panicked or overwhelmed, like we breathe differently depending on where we are in life and what we're thinking and how stressed we are, how present we are. You can be somebody who's really like gotten used to having very shallow breathing patterns. And you can also be someone who makes effort in having that deep breath and making sure that you fully feed your lungs and what have you. And that by itself is because of you being able to be present and being aware and practicing the flow of life and being centered enough to calm your nervous system so you can receive fully. And in that simple and very practical, very scientific term, the more able you are to have deep, calm breaths, it calms your entire nervous system, which in return makes sure that you are better able to think, your body functions better, you're more able to handle challenges and find direction. And it's such a simple thing just by the way we breathe. But I believe it's also, like I said, everything is a pattern of a pattern, and you see that everything like repeats a similar pattern on a different level. I believe it's the same with our life force breathing, right? That there is something within us, if we can be present, if we can really cultivate it, if we can trust it, it helps us live more abundant lives. It helps us thrive more. But our life, especially in the modern Western world, the one that has been imposed on the majority of people on this earth, it's a way of living that kind of disconnects you from your breath, but also from your life force. It's a way of living that pulls you along and engages you in a way of panic, that not only are you having to go somewhere very quickly and very hastily and very stressfully, and it's all very serious and you're already behind, you live in a way where there's really not a lot of time to allow us to just exist in the simplest of terms and figure out, hey, what's going on? How am I feeling? What am I doing? What am I doing? And the what am I doing, I think it's harder for us to question oftentimes, because we live in a world where we are very collective minded, and because everyone else around us is doing life a certain way, it's easy not to question what we're doing because everybody else is doing it. And it's easy not to question what we value in life because everyone else has already given us what is valuable in life, right? But in the very way that I say that everything you have won't matter if you can't breathe. Like literally, if you were suffocating and somebody was like, you might have to sacrifice your career, your titles, whatever, your accomplishments, so you could take another breath. most of us would be like, yeah, of course. But it's only at that moment we realize, like, wow, that's the most important thing I have. But how often do I actually take time to breathe intentionally? Just like the most important thing you have in that regard, in connection to that, is your life force. But how often do you take time to actually connect to it, to nurture it, and to let it guide you? Because that's the one thing that you're given that's incorruptible. Nobody can sell it to you. Nobody can take it away from you. Nobody can teach you how to have that, because you already have it. We already have that, right? And I think I'm going to dare and go even on the deeper end of the woo-woo. I feel like in my last soul talks, I've been like hinting more and more on that, and I want to feel brave enough to share what I am finding and exploring, and also trusting that whatever you guys can take from that is exactly what you need, and whoever can connect with that is exactly who needs it, and that's more than enough at this point. So what I have been exploring in that sense, I'm somebody who's like very leaning on woo woo, but also very grounded in the sense of like, I like practical understanding of things, and I don't like to just believe in things. I need them obviously to make sense to me. So I get very interested in the pursuit of spiritual science, and science from a decolonial perspective, science from an explorative and humanistic perspective, in the questioning of like our beings and why we're here, how we're here, and what is the most ideal way for us to be here. As a humanist, as somebody who believes that we can live on this earth and not be waiting for heavens or fearing hells or even creating hells for ourselves here, but like have a way of living on this earth that is truly enriching, embracing of everybody. There is more than enough for everyone. So the beauty of this system, that it's so invasive that at the end you don't need someone to force you into it. It's kind of like colonialism or even patriarchy, that it becomes so embedded in the way we live that the white worldview lives in your head, or the patriarchy lives in your head. So you act accordingly. The capitalism, the imperialist way of thinking, it lives in your head. So nobody needs to teach you even these terms, because it's so embedded in our collective conscious that we just download it, and in the way we live, in the things we value, in the way we organize our life, that we live according to it. We live in ways where every living hour, especially if you live in the Western world, it's a fight for your life force. Forget the devil and God. We have social media, we have algorithms, we have your job, we have families, and some of these places, like, they're more sinister than others, but a lot of it is just the way we live our life. Most people don't see that, oh my goodness, like, if I can center myself in this space, if I can really reclaim my agency in this area, it can give me a bigger guidance to how I live my life. And you're most likely not going to be intrigued to do this, because most of our guidance is external. You want to find people that you can follow, ideas you can follow. We are created to naturally distrust ourselves. And therefore, why would you think the solution lives within you? No, it cannot live within you. It's somewhere else. It's behind maybe a paywall. It's in a temple. It's in a sacred space. It's in this guru, like this teacher, this head of house, this partner, even. Like, there is this desire for us to just find the right being, institute, idea to lead our life, either from or just tell me what to do, because I'm exhausted. And I think that's where we can start. Why are you so exhausted that the most liberating idea that you can think of is outsourcing your power, outsourcing your agency, by being overwhelmed by just the busyness of life? There's little time for you to actually ponder and sit with the most vital part of life. As Africans who come from a continent that is very, very rich in valued resources, and I say that in that way because, again, we live in a very construed worldview. And the values we have, or the things we even see value in, are manipulated to fit the worldview that conquered our worldviews, right? So in that regard, we are to believe that the most precious thing that Africa, for example, has are our minerals, our gold, our cobalt, all of that, because the West values that. The West needs that. The West has built its empire, its civilization, its wealth on the exploitation and the theft of these things from indigenous people, land, what have you. And it shows up even in our Africanness. The values we have of progression and the values we have of finally being of worth are also mimicking those values that we inherited because of imperialism, because of colonialism. And it's literally like the blind leading the blind. With all this extraction of minerals, of precious stones, of all of that, the West hasn't become any wiser, any more holistically evolved as beings. Because to be holistically evolved, to live from a place of growth, emotional growth and evolution, like, one would have to encompass it the idea that how can you exist on the expense or the depletion of a huge part of the world and a huge population of the world? There's no wisdom in that. That makes absolutely no sense. And how could you build an entire society or way of living that literally makes it so that we are in correlative destruction of the world? The more we evolve, the more we grow, the more we expand, we destroy more, and we make life on Earth harder to live for each other and for the many beings we share this planet with. How can that be the most inspiring idea of a civilization or modernity or the future, God forbid, right? But we are the blind, following the blind, because we have been severed from our own guidance. We have had ideologies that demonize the ways that we sought guidance and counsel and connection to our bigger existence, to our earth, to ourselves, to the substance of life. And so we believe that we are pursuing a way of being and living on this earth that is going to bring us so much more. But the model of that, the vision of that by itself is very empty if we see the architects of that worldview and even what they have managed to create for themselves, right? From a practical perspective, we understand that if most of the world lived like the average Western citizen, we would need 3 to 4 times like as many planets to sustain the consumption, just as the average. Just from that practical perspective, we know that it's a way of living that exploits and takes more than it gives. It does not live in harmony because itself is fueled by a sense of greed and scarcity, a hoarding kind of mentality. And it's destructive to the earth, but more than that, it's again like mirror patterns, as above, so below, but also as outwardly, so internally. What we do to the world, we do to ourselves. How we view the world is how we view ourselves. How we extract from the world or live in communion with the world is how we live with ourselves on an individual and then on a community level, right? And to be honest, it's not even anymore from a place of judgment, like, bad white man. I think I've gone through all the stages, and to be frank, and I'll always say this, they're all very important. I'll never shame anybody from where they are in there. I just hope you keep going through them. Because then you get to another place where it feels more like, especially as somebody who's been raised on the European continent and understanding their history and understanding, oh my goodness, like there was no other way they could have passed on anything but self-destruction and the destruction of the earth, because the history of how Europe developed by itself before it could go around and conquer everybody and oppress everybody. You can't do that because you are living in a space of harmony and joy and peace. You do that because you were already fighting inner demons by yourself. You had no sense of grounding, no sense of safety, no sense of abundance. And so you need to externalize that sense as much as possible. And you get so caught up in that neurosis that you're unable to reconnect back to your true essence. The oppression that we experience from the West was first practiced on Western people, or like in Europe, it was the colonization practice. All of those things were in so many ways first practiced here and embedded at such an invasive way of being that it created a worldview and it created a way of living that is almost like a disease that's spread out through the world in so many ways. But it's a beautiful disease because it gives us so much to occupy ourselves externally, and it gives us so many little rewards and cuteness and beauty and materialism. So it's a distracting disease. It's a hypnotic disease that blinds you while comforting you, but not in the truest sense, because it's numbing at the same time. It's almost like junk food, but from a spiritual sense, in the sense that you think you're eating and feeding yourself, but then you create an addiction, and then you also don't really fully sustain all the things you need for yourself. You're not fully satiating yourself in a holistic way, right? It lacks substance. That's why for a lot of Western people, if they do want more and they're able to free themselves from this illusion of life we've created, that why wouldn't you be happy? You live in the most advanced, most modern, most civilized part of the world. You should be happy, and then you do everything, and then you do the jobs, you get the money, you get the house, and you're not happy, and there's nowhere to look. Yes, go visit a few third world countries and hug some brown and black babies and say, oh my God, they're so happy, and they have nothing, and they're so happy. Do you understand what that means by itself? They have nothing, but they're so happy. Because you are exposing your own thinking in that sense, that everything will make you happy. And that's why you're not happy, because everything is material. And maybe they are happy because they have things that are more substantial than what you have. And then you can go back home and feel a bit more like grateful, and which I've always hated. I'll never have children who I tell, finish your food because somewhere in Africa someone is starving. Why is your enjoyment and your appreciation of life based on others not having? But it's because it's the dichotomy that the Western world is built on, that I am safe because of all these things I have, and I know that because others don't have, you know? I'm wealthy because I've seen others who have less. I am powerful and valuable because I have all these valuable things in contrast to what other people have. Until I see other people above me who have even more, then I'm like, oh, okay, but I'm not as, so I need to keep getting things. I need to keep accomplishing things. It's a neurosis. It's a mental and spiritual disease that we live under in so many ways. And it's so hypnotic, and it keeps you busy Monday to Friday, whereas days don't even freaking exist. We made that shit up as well. You just have sunset, sunrise. And we've organized it that way so we can keep you occupied for the majority of your life. And this is like the betterment of civilization. Like before, people used to work all the time. Then we're like, okay, we can't have them working all the time. They're revolting, the revolutions. We need to give them some time off, but not too much. And now you can actually have more time off, because the majority of things that are needed to manage you and control you don't even need to live outside you. They live right inside your very home, in the technology, in the things you consume. And this distraction of life makes it feel like the reason you don't feel fulfilled is because, and this is the beautiful part of the not beautiful part, a part of you knows that there is more than what you're experiencing. A part of you knows that. A part of you feels that. That despite everything telling you what is valuable, you wonder, like, it feels like there's something more, you know? It feels like I could be more. But then you're like, maybe I just need more stuff. Need to travel more, need to just occupy. Everything is like in the doing. And it's in the doing because, again, like from the worldview inherited or was imposed on us, which is also very patriarchal, and it has destroyed the feminine in so many ways, but it has also convinced us that only doing that matters is the actual doing. And it has convinced us that being by itself is not a form of not only value, but a necessary part of creating a full way of existing, basically, right? And I say that in so many ways because when we see like masculine value versus feminine values in the sense of just being and existing and presence, you're not doing anything. If I just sat here for 30-40 minutes and uploaded it, maybe that could be a concept. People say this girl just does nothing on her videos. What's happening here? The way we are so weird, I even imagine like that could by itself intrigue a lot of people, but like it's a lot. Still, that is something of value. And in fact, it's what is needed to balance the active part of life. There is no need to demonize the masculine, but we live in a way where the masculine is pumped up on the basis of how much of the feminine it has destroyed or dominated, or like this idea that it does not value it to know that it needs it just as much for balance, just like the feminine needs the masculine energy to balance itself. When we go beyond that, and in the way we live, our life is very occupied oriented. Every single part of your existence is almost fought for, and when it's not being fought for, you by yourself cannot let it be by itself. You don't want to just sit and look out the damn window, because what is that? Everything is a form of doing. Everything is a form of like the only thing with value. Again, value, and value is something we decide. It's something that is not a fixed thing. It's something we put on. This is valuable, that is not valuable, this is valuable. So the worldviews that are imposed on us also affect that. It's not intrinsic in the sense that we think it could be. It's a way of managing life by telling people, like, for example, if I give you this golden coin, you can give me 3 apples. Do you understand? But maybe in 10 years, I'm going to tell you this golden coin can only buy you half an apple. It's made of bullshit, where at the same time, the apple takes the same time to grow from the earth, as far as I know. It's not changing, right? The sun still only needs a certain amount of hour. Like, there's things that are fixed, and we make up value and we change it in the progression of making people have to fight more and more for value, more and more to feel valuable, because you are intrinsically not seen as a valuable thing. You are only as valuable as your ability to create all the things you have, right? And in the same way, by taking on this understanding of the world, it also disconnects you from the most valuable thing that you have, truly, that nobody is going to praise you for cultivating, caring for. Nobody is going to praise you for maybe even prioritizing, because it goes against the world that we have currently created. But in that by itself should make you more curious about it, because the world that we have created is leading us over a freaking cliff, holistically, environmentally, socially, community-wise, spiritually, consciously, right? So sometimes it's what you know that the world is not going to initially teach you or inspire you to be aware of, that you should then question, why is that so? Why am I praised for all my doings and havings, not for all my beings and intrinsic values? Because nobody can control that part. Nobody can sell you that part. And in fact, in the world that we live in, the patriarchal, the masculine, its value, like just like the autonomy of men and women, our sex organs are internal, their sex organs are external. In the phallic world, value is placed on, even when we think about, like, to be grotesque, like the measuring of sex organs, like how big is it, how much destruction can it cause, like it's so it's so childish. I don't know which lady online that was talking about it, but she was like, the worst part about the world ending is that it's being, which I don't believe in. The world can never end because life can never end. It just transforms. But staying on topic, but she was saying, like, the worst part about it, that it's being done by such loser kind of beings, men specifically, right? And it's so ridiculous that, but the question then is, if they are that ridiculous and that much of quote unquote losers, why are they so powerful? How did we get to a world where they have the power to destroy the world? That should be our main question, not that, oh, look at all these annoying, incompetent men leading us down the road of nothingness, but rather, how did we create a society where such incompetent men can get away with that? Like, and the key in that is also recognizing that they're not doing it by themselves. We too are part of it. We are not detached from it. We've created a way of living and being and thinking and existing that gives that more power than anything else. And we do that by our life force. When you're sitting at home and you think you're doing nothing because you're consuming stuff, scrolling, or even just like, for example, watching me, you might think, what are you doing? Nothing. It's defined as nothing because we don't value the fact that you are engaging your life force in something right now. Your very presence is being engaged right now, and you are offering your presence right now. But if I can teach you that is nothing, then as I distract from your presence, your life force, your time on earth, that's nothing. It's not equivalent to the dopamine hike you're going to get, or working really shitty, life-degrading jobs to get all this stuff that we think, because that is something. Your well-being, your ability to feel grounded, to feel enough, to define what you value, that's nothing. It's not as important. Who cares about your freaking values if nobody else is going to praise you for them or envy you for having them, right? That's the world we live in. So why would you care to cultivate that? Why would you even think about cultivating that? Nobody's going to like you connecting to your inner self. And like, how do you show that in a picture? How do you sell that? Where are you going to sell that? So going back to Africa, the most important thing that Africa has, for example, it's not all those minerals and precious. So, and I am saying that it's an earth level, like earth is very beautiful, like it's precious. Our forest, everything that sustains life is precious. But a stone cannot be more precious than the life force of the people whose lives are sacrificed, who the most precious thing we have in Africa is our life force. Because that life force, be it as we may, we think has no value, but it moves the world. When colonizers came and they gave us new values, new worldviews, new purposes, new religions, and they all were pointing to what they valued, and we lived according to this, we were offering our presence, our life force, and we're not offering it into a pit of nothingness. It's what adds to the power of this direction, this purpose, this worldview, this engine. by engaging in it, by being persuaded in it, by thinking it's the only way, not just a way, and questioning it on its own merit. We have been bamboozled out of the most precious thing we have, which is our life force, which is our presence, which is our what we give attention to, what we give meaning and value to, what we give energy to. And life force is that it gives energy. If I can get you to go to a temple every week and close your eyes and imagine that I, with my dreadlocks and my 5.2 on a good day height and dark skin, am the epiphany of deities, of worthy to be worshipped. And every time you pray, you imagine someone like me. There is no damn way that that's not going to make me more powerful on this earth. Just by that act by itself. Do you understand what I'm saying? There are studies that show that when people get together and they pray and meditate on peace for a specific area, that within those hours, is the time they are meditating on peace, crime significantly decreases. And those are just few studies. They're never over amplified in your news. You won't find them over talked about, repeated on constantly, like all the other bullshit that your life force is invited to give attention to, because it feeds a worldview of destruction, despair, fear, scarcity. But that by itself, you knowing that, you recognize that just by being present, doing nothing, focusing on something, giving it energy, your life force, and doing it in community literally changes crime rates in a specific area. So if you can do that in a small study, if I can get you to focus all your energy on things that I value, that are related to me, that I do, that I choose, you might think you're living your own life. In fact, you think you're free. In fact, you don't even meet a lot of people who are short like me with Glocks but you doing that consistently, I've created a blueprint. Like, you are offering me your life force, your energy. So when we go back to these incompetent men, quote unquote, allegedly, they can do that because we've offered them our life force, and we continue to offer them our life force. Everything we create is only as powerful as the energy we give it, as the purpose we give it, as the focus of attention we give it, right? So whoever can control that, and even better, make you think that that is nothing. What? That means nothing. What? That has no value. What has values is this gold we're digging up, these diamonds we're making profit from. Like, that's what's valuable. Like, it's you. You don't even know that you're giving me something that is the most precious thing for you to give anything or anyone. But also, it's your access to the most profound liberation you could ever experience on earth. Reclaiming your life force, recentering your life force, realigning your life force to things that actually benefit you and matter to you and are leading you to where you want to go in life. If you can't do this, if you don't even think about this as powerful, if you can't even imagine this as beneficial, then you've already lost a huge part of the fight. No amount of doing not balanced with presence, intention, and an awareness of the most valuable thing you have to give in life is ever going to create the world that we actually want, because it's still living in the very Eurocentric worldview, the very masculine worldview, and that by itself is not going to rebalance the life. It's not going to rebalance the issues we have. It's by acknowledging all the other things that we are blinded to even knowing have value, that are precious, even irreplaceable. Do you understand? I feel like this feels more like an introduction to a bigger thing, but I feel like whoever needs to hear this and hear this will get what they need from this conversation, and they'll start reevaluating their life from that point. What are you giving away thinking it means nothing? And that's why, like, when I made the other video on kin keeping or kinship and caring for community, and why that work is most, especially in the African community, done by women, but then being told that it's not that valuable. We see it also in the working world, and in where whenever women are a majority somewhere, it's less valued, because if women are doing it, it's not that precious. But these are things that literally keep the world together, community together. But because the value systems we have are created from such an imbalanced, destructive force, that of course the things that could sustain and rebalance life are less valued. That does not mean they're less valuable, they're just less valued. And it's the same in the way that we live our life, that the things that could actually amplify our power, our agency, our sovereignty, our ability to create freedom for ourselves are not going to be the things that are put on highlight of this is actually very precious, more precious than everything you can do, all the work you can do, all the productivity you can give, all the material you can collect. I'm not saying one or the other, I'm saying the balance is needed, but you can't have the balance if you don't know it's imbalanced from the beginning, and that imbalance is what is distracting us from our ability to live and create a world where we are all more harmonious, first within ourselves and the world we live in, because we see and cultivate the value of a holistic way of existing, mind, body, soul, and surrounding consciously, from the masculine values and the feminine values, right? The world we have today with its extraction and violence would not exist if those things were balanced and aligned. It would not be possible if they were equally valued. So question the things you value, question the things you prioritize, questions the way you schedule and live your everyday life. The things you think are nothing, and who taught you they're nothing. The things you think are everything, and who taught you they're everything, right? The things you think are valuable, and who told you they're valuable. Nobody's going to do this work for you. You have to be engaged in wanting to do that work for yourself and seeing the value of that work for yourself. And yeah, so that's the video I wanted to share with you guys today. As always, I hope it's of benefit. I'm sure it will be for the people, because for me it was also, and there's so many other things that I can explore within that by itself. But continue your own exploration. If you have questions, ask. There are lots of people who explore this area by itself, so there is a lot of information to find if you're sincere in being educated on this. As I always say, like, that's also what I do in my sessions, like my desire, that's my intention. As I grow, as I evolve, I also want to pass that on to the people that I hold sessions for. So if you ever feel called for that, don't be afraid to reach out. If you want somebody at least to help you, to guide you on the path, I'll be more than happy to. It's part of my soul work that I'm very proud of and love doing and feel very aligned with, so I'll be more than happy to hold that space for you. But otherwise, there's a lot of information everywhere. I've learned a lot of this without paying anything. You don't have to pay to get to know this information. It's available if you want to find it. And most of all, you will never live life or struggle through life the same way once you've done that transition. I hope I haven't been too vague, because a lot of this stuff already lives in me, so maybe the way I talk about it, I can talk from a place of assumption to certain areas that people know this part or know that part. But like I said, ask questions, and if you're curious, do your own research to get more connected with your own life force, your soul. And you don't even have to be religious or even spiritual about it, but just knowing, like, even from a conscious perspective, we understand that in the quantum physics or quantum science, like, there's more research showing like what our minds, our presence is able to do by itself, and whoever gets to control that, even without your consent, has the ability to mold the world with more force supporting it than we would maybe intentionally give consent to. So anyway, thank you for watching and spending this moment with me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye. Un oiseau, j'irai danser, sous l'orage je traverserai les nuages comme le fait la lumière, j'écouterai sous la pluie la symphonie des éclairs.